when Steven's audience gets to individuals, it's not sort of a pretty thing. I had like one guy who had a PhD in psychology tried to diagnose me over Twitter. And one of the things that I asked him to do was to knock it off and take it back. And I said, if he wasn't going to do that, then I'm going to essentially take it from there with his faculty. And he chose to side with Destiny over his career. So, good
Wait,
job for him.
Did you email his faculty?
Yeah.
A curd is a curd.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, Dylan.
How you doing?
I'm actually having a panic attack, but I'm gonna see if I can tough it out.
Why are you having a panic attack, buddy?
Just the nerves. I mean, it's sort of like putting myself out there, I guess. I don't know. Like, I can't really say for specific reasons. Anyways, I came in guns were blazing, and I'm a little concussed, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how you want to approach this particular conversation. If you want it to be antagonistic or anything like that. If that's the case, I'm probably gonna have to reschedule. However, if you want to have just sort of like a regular chill kind of conversation, that's something I might be able to manage.
So, it seemed that you thought that my show and what I bring to the platform with my debates are more harmful, and I actually let me just read the original message.
Go for it.
So, second, let me go to. So, man, serial racist Stephen Bonnell, and then you put his friends at. Audience really can't help themselves. Try not to help Mark Grudgel and Grudgel for mayor, even after harassing a journalist. By the way, I offered to debate Bro Steven and Vosh and Everyday Bastiat and Dylan Burns. Even reached out to Hutchins. By the way, this is the first time I'm aware that you've reached out to me about this.
Yeah, which is entirely possible. I mean, you could have necessarily missed it. I'm not sure how your Twitter notifications look like. I was never in your shoes in terms of like having an active Twitter feed, so it's entirely possible that you missed it.
Okay.
So if that's the case, then I apologize for that statement and retract it.
Okay. And I basically respond, I'm unfamiliar who with you are. Did you message me and want to talk about something? Then you responded saying, we spoke for a couple hours regarding foreign policy. You were generous with your time and I learned a few things regarding the Middle East. You didn't seem to think I was crazy then. I'm super curious how you unpack this and still take yourself seriously on a political level. Just ask Steven, though. He'll tell you I'm nuts and not to engage. Plenty of topics to pick. How I've tanked my credibility being a political streamer by giving Steven a pass. How I'm hosting a toxic environment. This isn't anywhere near the status of debate, which isn't healthy for anyone involved, myself included as a former participant. Were you ever on my show?
I have watched your show. I have never been a participant of your show. When we had a discussion, it was through Discord, and I had approached you in regards to my ignorance in terms of foreign policy. You offered to sort of speak to me in relation to that. You were extremely knowledgeable in that particular area, as you always have been through like your streams and that sort of thing. It's just that this pivot to sort of debate bro culture is what I'm sort of concerned with. And I vocalize that quite heavily on social media because I'm addicted and it increases my aggression levels, to which you see the result in front of you right there. Also, I've been incredibly frustrated with Twitch politics in general, trying to get this out, basically having been labeled as somebody who is crazy for having opinions that I hold. So that's where that sentiment sort of lies. It's entirely possible that I completely mischaracterized your role in this, because I'm just sort of going with very limited information. I think everybody is well intentioned. I don't think anybody is doing this out of malice. However, there are some things that I want to bring to consideration for you and for Twitch politics in general.
So let's go through the first thing here. The first message you put out. So the first thing you said is how I've tanked my credibility being a political streamer, giving Steven a pass. How did I tank my credibility?
Because Steven is not an individual who should be engaging in politics. Like, full stop. When you get to the point where you are essentially making statements like you want to mow down protesters sick, in retrospect, he's meant to say rioters. Anybody who's going to be sort of captivating that is going to take issue with it. Moreover, there's no sort of limelight that you can paint that in where it's going to be okay. That's what I mean.
So his comments about property destruction and thinking that militias should like one of the solutions could possibly, or Sam, if this is what it takes to stop this property destruction, is these redneck militias. Since he said that, I should not engage with him whatsoever.
Well, not necessarily not engage with him whatsoever, but not necessarily sort of give him sort of the pass in relation to that. Because
what do you mean I gave him the pass?
You kind of dulled down sort of like what the statement Steven made is, because he actually said he'd give blessing to people who would mow down rioters. Like, the amount of people who are able to navigate politics without sort of making such statements is pretty much everybody.
Okay, so the statement he made, as far as I remember, was they were having a conversation between him and Vivian Wolf, and the statement was, after there was a new set of rioting, is that due to the effects of how this is having on the election and how it's changing people's perspective on Black Lives Matter and having a negative optics impact, if what it takes to stop rioters is dipshit militias, basically redneck militias out there mowing down rioters, then that's what it takes, right? And I gave him a pass on that. I agreed with it. I said that's the correct statement, or what did I do?
Well, everybody essentially gave him a pass on it, and just
everybody.
Sort of, yeah, everybody, and just essentially.
I mean, didn't he lose his partnership?
Well, he did lose his partnership. However, he did start going to canvass for Mark Gudgel, and at that point in time, that came up, and everybody seemed to continue with, backing up Steven.
Like, yeah, I will work with people I disagree with to get political goals. 100%. Yeah, I do it all the time.
Well, there's people you disagree with, and there are people who start harassing student journalists who are merely just reporting on events, right?
Did he harass her?
Well, I mean, he basically quote tweeted the article and
that's harassment.
Yes.
Quote tweeting is harassment.
When 80 plus people of your audience show up to tell you you're a shit journalist, that's harassment. If I had 80 people show up to your house to tell you you're a terrible person,
if somebody wrote an article about me and the article was something that I thought was extremely dishonest, let's say it was like, Dylan is a thug who mugs people and does all says a bunch of stuff that I disagree with, right? And I'd be like, hey, that's a big misrepresentation of what happened to me in my youth, and and I say that in a quote tweet, and then some of my fans go to them and say, hey, that was terrible reporting, I hate this. That's like the evil thing that should make me stop associating with him.
A little more than that, because he was wrong in his approach. Like, that's the whole problem.
What do you mean? Like, quote tweeting is wrong?
No, his sort of assessment that the individual in question was a poor journalist, because it seems to be sort of a.
From what I'm aware, he sent them a lot of very detailed answers to questions, right? And instead of using very detailed answers to questions and all the other stuff that he gave to explain his positions, explain why he said that, she basically just took like one or two and threw that in there and did not include the full context that he gave him, that he gave the journalists. And so Steven, angry that not full context was given after giving like a really detailed response, quote tweeted and then posted the rest of the answers they gave. right? On
Sure.
other platforms. I don't really see what's wrong with that. If there's something that I'm not aware of that occurred here, then maybe you can bring that up to me.
Well, the slight problem is that Stephen isn't sort of well versed in terms of journalism and what it entails. I'd say that you probably are not either. The student journalist, however, who reported on that would probably be one of the individuals who could sort of fit that criteria, as well
Are you
as,
well versed in journalism and what it entails?
well, one of the things that I decided to do was actually look up in terms of like what criteria journalisms follow, and it's not to become an individual's blog; it's to represent the citizens of Omaha and their interests. So, if somebody happens to manifest,
So not giving like proper context to statements or talking about what the statements were, that's serving the people of Omaha, like not giving a full response.
okay, well, you have the reader, you have the gateway, which are so that's two reporters. You have another reporter that chimed in on the comments. That's three.
Uh-huh.
You have the editor that of the paper itself. That's four.
Uh-huh.
So I'm counting four journalists versus you and another individual who's a
honestly,
stringer who
gonna be
has
honest,
absolutely zero experience.
so you're telling me that a reporter and another reporter's friend, a friend who likes that reporter, and other people from the paper all were like, yes, the article that we put out was good, and that therefore, because they said that, they didn't have to give like full context to statements or like
These
show Destiny
two-
what after Destiny gives like all this stuff, and like, that wasn't necessary.
These two
And
articles.
this is why I shouldn't ever like talk or do stuff with Destiny or back up any political activism that somebody engages in.
These two articles that I'm citing are both from independent people. So two
Okay.
journalists from different walks of life reported on this story and basically had identical sources. However, the one Hannah, the person who got harassed like into the fucking ground to the point where her Twitter account is still locked, they are the ones who provided the full context, links to like the stream and everything like that. So I don't know why you're under the impression that journalists need to become Steven's blog, but that's just
I didn't.
delusional.
Well, I never said he needed to become Steven's blog. But if someone
That's
came
what
up to
you're
me,
implying.
if somebody said, if somebody was like, "Hey, Dylan, is it true that you mug somebody?" And I'd be like, technically, yes. When I was 14, I did do that. Now, since then, I've grown a lot, right? And I do all that. And then they say, Dylan confirmed that he mugged a person. Do you not think I would have a right to be like, kind of weird they didn't include any of the follow-up of like, how I've grown since I was 14 years old, how the environment that I was in at the time was very toxic and drug-filled and abusive, and I'm going to retweet this and be like, hey, that is not very honest. Here is the full answer I gave here. And this is the thing that should make me cut off ties with Steven and not engage with him?
Well, when you're framing it in that particular perspective, I think it's a little dishonest, because the way you're sort of approaching this is you're approaching it from the perspective that Steven is correct when he's not.
Okay, so Steven did not include more information or context to his statements.
It's entirely possible that Steven provided more information. However,
he did. We have it. It's all publicly available.
A journalist's job is not to sort of take people and walk them through hours of your stream in order to make sure that every single little, I is dotted and T is like crossed out and all that sort of stuff. Like I said, they're not your personal blog. However, the people in Omaha responded, Mark Gudgel specifically, immediately breaking ties after he noticed that.
And that was bad that happened.
Right. And if it would have happened like at the time during Georgia, what do you think might have happened in that kind of a situation?
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. The thing is, there's no way that a separate organization, not directly affiliated with either the Warnock or Ossoff campaign, doing its own separate canvassing with a separate organization, which was the Yang whatever group that I was there. By the way, I was there canvassing with them.
I know. That's one
so
of the
there's-
reasons why I tagged you.
So, like, I have no clue how this would at all affect Warnock. Like, what would it be? Like, person who once said bad thing supported Ossoff and Warnock. Well, would that be the statement? Then I mean, like,
person who once said, we should mow down rioters, or sick or whatever.
if
like,
what
at
it
that
takes
point
is
in
redneck
time,
militias to mow down rioters to make this stop, then yeah, that would maybe be the statement. What?
these are not statements that are normal, and they're not statements.
I don't endorse these statements, but again, I work with people who have done. Okay, do you think Joe Manchin supported, say, Ossoff and Warnock winning? Do you think he ever? If I could find a clip of Joe Manchin endorsing them, would you say that Joe Manchin shouldn't have done that due to him like coping for corporations that pollute West Virginia's waters, or him doing anything of those sort?
I'm not familiar with that particular example.
You're not familiar with this. Okay, here's a better example. What about Joe Biden, like talking about all the 7-Eleven Indian workers, or if you ain't vote for me, you ain't black? Do you think the Democratic Party should have just thrown him under the bus and actually now here's our new nominee? Do you think that would have been a good idea?
There's a stark difference between the statements that Joe Biden said within the context and the time period that he said.
Oh, now we need context.
And well, yeah, I mean, context
Okay.
is going to be important if you're going that far back. However, if
Far
you're
back
in,
was 1 year ago, by the way. The black thing was a year ago.
okay, in the here and now, right? If we're in a position where we are trying to sort of assess potential damages that might happen by Stephen being present on the campaign trail, because this is not going to go away. Like, the person that I would more closely sort of relate to Stephen would be Trump.
Trump.
Yeah. He's the kind of person who would say something like mow down protesters. Like, I could
That's
shoot
not
somebody
okay.
in Fifth
Okay, let's be
Avenue.
clear.
That would be
That's
that would
not
be
that's
more,
not that's not what Steven said. He didn't say just mow down protesters.
Would you like me to get the clip and we could play
Wait,
it?
I just watched the clip before stream. What he specifically said was due to the optics of how terrible this is making the movement. If what is necessary is to get these to let these redneck militiamen mow down dipshit protesters who think they can burn down property, all that stuff. And
Then they have
that's
my
also then they have my blessing. And that's also alongside multiple instances where Stephen Bunnell has said in multiple debates otherwise besides this that he like, hey, I support the right to protest. He's even endorsed the destruction of public property from protesters, saying they're allowed to. His big thing is private property. Again, like, I disagree with his statement, and the reason why is I don't think these militias that we're talking about would be good to at all like be in these environments and not just be discriminate with who they like lay out violence. A lot of them don't have the proper training, so I disagree with his statement, right?
Well,
But
if we're
I don't again, let's not lie about what he said though.
sure, but if we want to go with the full context, like the entire series of events that led up to that particular discussion was first him tweeting an image with like a Tony Hawk meme where somebody is getting shot and murdered. Or killed. Sorry, killed.
Uh-huh.
So these are not things that people who are in the frame of mind to do politics do on the regular.
Okay.
Nobody.
Okay.
So if you're going to be sort of aligning yourself with that kind of an individual, then yeah,
I align
I'd say that-
myself a lot with individuals who have done disgusting things, and I'll have to do it for the entirety of my life. There's no other option. If I'm gonna work in politics, I'm gonna have to align myself with people who voted for wars and killed over hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people. If I'm gonna get involved in the Democratic Party, I'm gonna have to align myself with individuals who don't care about if I have the right to marry or not until it's politically beneficial. If I get involved in politics, I'm gonna have to align myself with blue dog Democrats who are gonna throw trans people and other individuals under the bus. I choose a utilitarian, well, somewhat of a rule utilitarian outlook. Whatever is the best for my cause, whatever is the best for getting the results that I care about, I will do. And if working with Steven in order to get Warnock and Ossoff in there, so we can get $1.9 trillion stimulus bills that cut child poverty in half, matters a lot more to me than one streamer's statement. And I find it a little ridiculous, the idea that this one streamer statement could have at all hurt the Ossoff and Warnock campaign, since he was not directly associated with the campaign. He was doing his own independent event doing this, and neither of them ever met with him or had any relation to them whatsoever. It was completely separate. I don't see any way that was possible.
But from my point of view, from my perspective, like what happened with Mark Gudgel was essentially that. If Doug hadn't messed up.
By the way, let's be clear, it would be people like you that would end up undermining like the Ossoff Warnock campaign by trying to do something like this, by the way.
Why would I ever try to undermine?
Because what you're doing right now is you're DMing or messaging anyone who's ever interacted with Destiny, or has ever like been near or some like talked to Destiny, and like saying like, how can you give him a pass? How can you do this? How can you do that? Like when you look at all these Destiny people still phone banking for Mark Gudgel because they posted it on his Reddit. You're bringing attention to these things and then trying to point to Steven's past misdoings while his people are getting involved in a positive political action. You are the person bringing attention to it.
Right, but the reason I'm bringing attention to it is because of the escalations that occur after Steven does this stuff. Like
Steven is literally not even doing anything else. It is his supporters saying, hey, look, we could phone bank for him. And you're like, how dare they continue to phone bank for Mark?
It's coming from the Destiny environment, and that is not a good look for Mark Gudgel.
Why is it? Okay, the thing is, Mark wasn't going to win without Destiny's help, period. That's also just a fact.
Okay.
Because there are multi-$100,000 candidates who are that corporate donors and extremely wealthy people love. And you know what? Without a lot of grassroots activism, I don't see any small-time candidate just winning on their own. And I think Destiny, whether you like him or not, was able to bring attention to his campaign, who I think is a good candidate due to his position on refugees and a lot of other things. He brought attention to that candidate and brought a lot of hands to go help that candidate. And at the end of the day, I care about good candidates winning more than I care about Destiny's bad comments. I care about good policies being implemented more than I care about Destiny's bad comments. And you are the person trying to drag Destiny's bad comments and say like, see, you're ruining Mark Gudgel campaign, not even by you being associated anymore, but just your people going out and phone banking and doing stuff.
So the entire reason that I wanted to engage in this is just because of my personal experience in Destiny's community in that particular regard. So we're obviously going to disagree with this. I'm not entirely sure if there's a way that I could sort of explain my position better. If I think of something, I'll let you know. You've been respectful. You've been receptive. You haven't called me insane. And I'll take into consideration what you have to say in terms of the.
What exactly do you want me to do anyway? I don't want to know this like what is it that Dylan Burns TV could do that would like make you be like, wow, that's great. I'm happy now.
Because I'm worried about you. I'm worried about Steven, and most importantly, I'm worried about your audience. Because your audience is primarily young kids who are like in their early 20s who don't have.
Most of my audience is older than me.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I'll take that back then. I am going by the only metrics that I have, which is the one that Steven posted. Well, not Steven, it was some other individual.
Steven posted my metrics?
No, Steven's metrics. So I was
my
going
community
by
is
that.
not Steven's community. I have more overlap with other creators than I do Steven.
I was not aware of that, so I stand corrected on that particular note. And maybe this will ring true to potentially, and this might be something that you can sort of look into in relation to sort of social media being a huge detriment to various individuals who are interacting in these communities. I have sort of my personal experience with that. And in terms of the harm that it causes, it's because it's creating heightened levels of anxiety, stress, suicide. Did you happen to see The Social Dilemma at all?
No, are you telling me that me having social media is like hurting my audience?
What I'm saying is that your audience's interaction with social media is hurting them. And one of the things that's engaging them is this debate bro stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so I think my content and the stuff I produce and how I interact with my audience is overall more beneficial to society and the people consuming my content than it is hurtful. I think I think all content has its pros and cons, and it's just a kind of cost-benefit analysis. And I think my ability to drag more people into the political space, get more people more knowledgeable in foreign policy generally, and just get them actually a perspective and have somebody talk to them who does organizing as their lifetime's work is probably more beneficial than them spending time in a lot of other spaces they could be spending on Twitch. Listening to people who have never organized talk about politics, or talking to people who don't know anything about foreign policy talk about foreign policy. And if I have to do the dog and pony show with the debate stuff, I think it actually is more beneficial getting more people looking at the channel through that than not doing it.
Yeah, I get that, and I shared your opinion for a time being, even at the point in time where I was actually volunteering for the campaign efforts and that sort of thing. However, after the things that transpired over the course of time, that opinion changed. I changed. One of the things I started doing, and I'd suggest you and audience members might want to try. I started a journal, and I started tracking behavior in terms of like what I was interacting with, as well as what my moods were. And at a certain point in time, I was getting aggressive, agitated, just sort of starting Twitter fights and all that sort of stuff. And the thing that I noticed was the only sort of element that was present that was giving me such stimuli was Destiny's stream. So one of the things I suggest trying to do, it's an experiment you can try yourself. Do it for about a week, track your activities, then try to cut back on certain content and that sort of thing. It might be more difficult for you, but other individuals might necessarily want to try that. And it's been extremely enlightening. Does that make sense?
So you want people to start a journal?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me. I mean, I don't see how that at all, like, it's like, has to do with my content.
Well, after I looked into that, I started looking into social media and its negative impacts. So one of the things that happens normally, well, let's say you have a YouTube channel, right? People log on, they watch your videos, and they share them on Twitter, and that's engagement right there. The engagement, however, this debate bro culture has is slightly different. People not only engage in the content, but they start participating in fights and getting aggressive and doing things like I mentioned. And one of the things that happened to me was essentially once I was labeled as crazy, I started getting that kind of content sort of filtering into my feed. How like I'm insane in Anna. And at a certain point in time, when you have a lot of people saying the same thing, you start second guessing yourself just a little bit.
I think people are calling you insane because you seem to be very fixated on Destiny, especially. And it's not only like you are like banned from his like Discord, or I don't know exactly, but like you can't you're no longer engaging with him because he doesn't want to engage with you. So you've moved from going to engage with Destiny to now trying to engage with everybody who interacts with him, try to either stop them from interacting with him or like make them answer for Destiny's actions. Like the best person to have this whole conversation you've had, except for like the idea of my streams, my debate stuff being toxic, but I haven't really been given a reason, is to have a conversation with Destiny, but you can't do that. So it seems like you've kind of like come here to like make me answer for his like perceived crimes.
I am just trying to get people aware of social media and its negative health impacts, and I'm not 100% sure that I've done that in any capacity. The only thing that I can sort of present is the evidence that the Social Dilemma, the documentary that I sort of linked, is sort of parroting in terms of like how it changes your behavior, how it manipulates your social habits, and that sort of thing.
So you think I'm toxic because I have a Twitter account?
No, it's just because you are partaking in the baby row culture, and
what's wrong with how I do it? What's wrong with my show?
Well, it's not a debate. It's just people arguing. Humans have like two kinds of systems, right? You have your automatic and you have your intentional. The intentional is the one where you're able to rationalize, and when you're fighting with people and you're just sort of like having a back and forth, like let's say if we were like a lot more heated and that sort of thing, we wouldn't be able to sort of engage that intentional system and sort of rationalize what's being said. So it's just basically putting yourself in a situation.
What's the last debate I hosted you watched?
The last debate that you hosted that I watched?
Yep.
LRTC fan was there. I know Destiny was there. The Libertarian Gentleman who was in the upper right-hand corner was there.
So that was like 6 months ago?
Entirely possible, yeah. But I know you've had like various debate sort of Olympics.
Olympics?
Like challenges and that sort of thing.
What?
Unless I'm misreading it entirely.
Do you mean the championship?
Yeah.
Okay. So the championship is a title belt thing. It's to add more flair to the politics area, to like the type of stuff we do, to bring more people in, because I think to make people interested in politics on Twitch, you don't need to make the Twitch sphere more like politics. You need to make politics more like Twitch. You need to Twitchify it to make the community who's already here more interested in politics. And I think this is something a lot of people in the Twitch political community don't understand. And I saw that as a way to do that, as a way to drag more people in. And because number one, Twitch streamers are very egotistical. Streamers in general are very egotistical. So putting something shiny in their face will make them want to grab it, want to have it. They would like the title and prestige that comes with it. Number two, I think that the audience finds the whole dynamics of it, the kind of scripted dynamics we kind of put with the show, as well with the like rumbles and like bigger events we have, is very entertaining, so they want to watch it. And it drags a lot of these people not only to the political content creators, which will then bring them further into political spheres and political knowledge, but it'll also like bring just more people generally to this section of the platform. I think it's a net benefit. Now, of course, the counter to it is like, well, don't you think these serious types of issues are not fit for this type of format? And my response to that is we talk about serious issues through a lot of formats that I guess other people can consider like inappropriate. We talk about it through film and media with messages and movies and TV next to superheroes and other things. I mean, wrestling itself has actually had a lot of politics injected into it. Sergeant Slaughter famously turned to like a supporter of Saddam Hussein. So it's not anything really new. The only difference is this is a direct line to actually more knowledge about politics. So I think it's actually a more productive version than what we've been doing with a lot of media for a long time.
Yeah, I'd agree with it sort of getting more eyeballs. The complication arises is that those eyeballs don't have a choice when they're tuning into your stream because of how social media is designed
Do you
and
think
how,
I'm like they don't have a choice but to watch my stuff?
yeah, because they're being socially sorted, because they're lonely, they're isolated, and they tune into the stuff because social media detects that, which is illustrated in The Social Dilemma, and they gravitate towards this content, and it just makes them miserable. And you can see it like with streamers themselves and their habits and behaviors. And Destiny, for instance, just sort of shunning his girlfriend and then moving over to a computer and that sort of thing.
Okay,
Constantly
wait,
moving from like,
wait. Okay, I don't think that one clip could be at all indicative of Destiny's general behavior with his significant other. I just view it as a
sure.
funny clip.
However, it's not normal.
What do you mean
The
it's not
other
normal?
thing,
It's just like, wait, what's normal? What is supposed to be normal? I don't think somebody messaging a bunch of creators that are not even Destiny to talk about Destiny is normal. But here I
I don't
am.
know if like my fiance is essentially approaching me with open arms, just sort of like going meh, and going to the computer is not
Do you not
something
think
that
it
I would
was?
consider normal.
I mean, again, I don't care if you consider it normal or not. Number one, is it harmful? Number two, is it like, is there like a wider like projection of like him having being extremely cold towards his significant other and him not like having like the type of relationship that I guess you think is healthy, or is it
There's
just one
being
clip?
cold, and then there's being like in the middle of space. If you are
What?
like ditching your fiance to go onto the computer, that indicates to me a red flag. And it's not just
I
that.
actually have to do
You
this a
can
lot. I have a
you
significant other, but I have to work online. So a lot of times my significant other be like, "Hey, you want to go do something?" It's like, actually, no, I gotta go to work.
Yeah, sure. But I guarantee that if like she'd be approaching you with open arms, you wouldn't be pulling that shit.
But I'm for
And
sure. I mean, if it was on stream, maybe because it'd be funny.
number two would be his, constant cycling from like one activity to the next, where he's like just clicking stuff like that. Loss of focus is one of the elements in terms of social media addiction. And that's just
Um,
one of the things that I wanted to bring to your
so
attention
I have
as
ADHD,
streamers.
right? So I just have always, and I no longer treat it because I'm trying to deal with it on my own.
Mhm.
And with my ADHD, it's always been difficult for me to keep focus, right, on a lot of topics. And so actually I find fast-paced streams that go from stuff to stuff to stuff actually extremely helpful.
Occurred.
I think you kind of have this like dynamic of what is supposed to be the healthy way to consume stuff for everybody, but that's just not the case for a lot of people. I like fast-paced content because it's what's easier for me to consume. I interacted with it in a way that I personally consider healthy. I think a lot of this content also depends on how much of it you consume and whether that's healthy. And I try not to delve myself into streams for too long. I actually probably stream a lot more than I watch streams.
Sure.
So I think this kind of standards you're making, maybe it would be easier for people to retain information when we talk about not jumping from topic to topic to topic, but also you need to keep streams entertaining, and this is how most media in the water space kind of works as well.
Yeah.
So I think, are you like calling for what exactly could I do to what, just concentrate on one topic a stream for 6 hours?
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I was saying is that when people are sort of going, like, let's say you're playing a video game, right?
Yeah, doing it right now.
And you decide to pop off to your Twitter to check your notifications, and you go back to the game. Then you pop off of Twitter to check the chat link, and you open a YouTube video. That sort of thing. Just a lack of lack of focus is one of the elements of social media addiction. And I'm saying that pretty much everybody who streams on Twitch is like giving off these signs. And all I can say is try the journal thing and see if you have a noticeable difference. Put it into practice.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah, go for it.
I have interacted with psychologists for a very large section of my life, I've taken a lot of medications to deal with my ADHD, and I've also had journals before. I really don't think that's going to help me at all. But if somebody out there really does think that a journal could help them, then I guess they could try it. But I don't think having fast-paced content online is inherently bad. I think you can make it more entertaining, make people want to tune in for longer periods of time because it doesn't get stale. I think it's definitely entertaining for people like me who have ADHD, and I don't see anything about this particularly harmful. And I think this would also not be really criticism of Steven, but of like just Twitch, all media.
Yeah, it's that pervasive, and it's that like we're there. Like this is going to be the thing that people talk about in terms of the ethical faux pas of our time, our generation. And it's illustrated within a documentary. And these are not like quacks or anything like that. These are engineers from like Pinterest, from Google, from Facebook, that are all giving testimonies along with accredited doctors. So the reason why I'm suggesting a journal, it's not for you to get better. It's just for you to catch it in the act. It might not work for you because if you're going at it and you had a diagnosis of ADHD, I don't know how you could parse that with a journal. I don't have ADHD. I'm just going by my personal experience. But if you try just doing the journal, engage with, your stuff like you normally do, and then later on, you try just sort of dialing it back and see if there's a noticeable difference. For me personally, there was. And look, I'm a guy who like has had his fair share of trauma, right? I was perfectly 100% cool with taking it on the chin, just disengaging overall, and just basically saying that Destiny is bad for politics. But when I started looking into this stuff, into the psychology behind it, I started seeing everybody sort of fall into these patterns of behaviors. And I'm just concerned that this is happening to the next generation. For me personally, when I was younger, I grew up without the internet. I come from a generation, I'm like a Gen Xer. I grew up in 79. I'm 41 years old. I saw life before social media and life after social media. And I'm telling you that this shit is wrong.
Okay, but this is not a criticism of Destiny. This is a criticism of literally everyone. So
of course.
And let me just be clear. Like I expect you don't really interact with my content, do you?
I haven't interacted with your content in quite some time.
Okay. You have not interacted with my content, but you specifically said, while not really interacting with my content in a very long time, I'm hosting a toxic environment that isn't anywhere near the status of debate, which isn't healthy for anyone involved, myself included as a former participant. Now, number one, you've never been on my show, so you're not a former participant. I maybe you meant like former participant of debate roundtables, period, but
debate bro culture and just generally politics.
This seems like you're saying you were a participant of my show and you've never been on my show before.
Okay, well then I'm cool with that correction, and I should have been more clear on that.
Okay.
That particular front.
And so this is the only thing that I feel like. Okay, so the toxic environment. What about my show is toxic? What about my show? Not like just generally like debate bro culture is this, debate bro. I want to know what's toxic about my show, the way I host it, so that people are like losing like their health over it. It's like not healthy, it's bad.
So it's a general toxicity that people are going to have to sort of come to terms with, and it's part of that documentary. So what I'd like to suggest is that you watch it.
You didn't give me a straight answer. I don't want you to give me like reading material. You told me I was my show's toxic after baiting me pretty hard, and now you're here. I would like to know why it's toxic.
Okay. So the reason why your show is toxic, and shows on Twitch generally for politics is toxic, is because people don't have the choice when they are engaging in politics, they are being sorted socially. They find themselves into tribes, various like either socialist, QAnon, the alt-right. Before the alt-right, it was anti-feminist. Before the anti-feminists, it was atheists. This has been going on for quite some time. So essentially what happens is you log on, you come online, and you start from scratch. And social media starts building a profile on you in terms of your habits, your activities, and that sort of thing. And it's so pervasive and so advanced that they can basically see if you are the type of person who is lonely, if you are isolated, and if you are ready for a certain amount of engagement. And the materials
This
that you
makes
present on
every
your show,
ever toxic that it currently exists. All shows are toxic then. All Twitch streams are toxic then. This applies to every show, every stream, anything that currently exists. It makes the word toxic basically pointless, because then I can't actually see from one show from another show. There's like this label. If this label can be applied to every single stream ever, then the word toxic is basically pointless.
well, no, it's essentially illustrating a culture of individuals who are increased in terms of the anxiety, more prone to suicide, and negative health effects, and it's all because of the engagements that they take part in on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook, and you're a part of that, whether you like it or not.
Aren't you?
Me, like, here's my plan. I'm going to be like, after this discussion is over.
Hey, yo, everyone
if
in
you
my
ever
chat, please don't kill yourself. There you go.
No, Dylan, come on. I am not gonna off myself. My plan is to like sort of get off of social media entirely. That's my plan. And try to sort of work towards coming up with solutions and getting people to look at the practices that Google and Facebook and these companies are doing. And one of the reasons I was revisiting this, it's entirely possible. Like, you might have been right, just sort of like saying that this is just old behavior manifesting, and it's just me looking to get into another argument online. So
I mean, to me, that's exactly what it seemed like, because
Yeah.
I mean, how much do I really have to do with all of this? The most is I like canvassed with him, but I wanted to go canvass for Raphael Warnock and Ossoff anyway, and it was a good opportunity. And I don't really think that example is comparable to the Mark Gudgel campaign, because he was much more deeply tied with Mark Gudgel. So, again, this felt like you were just looking for somebody who knew Destiny, that you could talk to and maybe argue about Destiny. But then kind of use like my show as kind of like the key card, because you don't want to just come on my stream to just complain about Destiny. You want to look good. You brought up my show. But then like the last show you've ever watched of mine was like 6 months ago, and your complaint about it being toxic literally applies to every single Twitch stream on the planet. So basically, you came onto my stream to complain about another streamer and something that applies to every single Twitch stream currently in existence. And that's why my show's toxic.
Essentially, it's more along the lines that if you are of the opinion that Destiny is somehow politically viable, then your objectivity has obviously been compromised, because nobody...
I don't think he could run for office, and I do think that a lot of his statements make it difficult for him to engage in politics. But I don't think
he can't ever be part of another campaign ever again.
That's not
There's
true.
no way.
That's not true.
No way.
He did
Destiny has never, ever shown an ounce of remorse for like anything he's ever said. Like zero. None. I don't even know if he's capable of remorse.
Nothing? What about the fact that he doesn't like to insult people over like body traits anymore, and he doesn't really like to do that anymore? He thinks that's bad now.
I mean, that's great, but if like on the sidebar you're starting to, show a keyboard with like the N, the I, the G, the E, the R that are faded.
That's actually not even that's not even how you spell it.
Well, I don't use it regularly, so I wouldn't know how to spell it. But yeah, there's 2 G's.
Yeah, there's 2 G's. Yeah.
I just named a country.
Yeah, that's the country of Niger. That's not bad. If he just said Niger, I have no
Sorry,
problem with
Niger. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, and like if he just sort of keeps on baiting these kinds of conversations and just sort of escalating like this,
I mean,
then
you're also, well, the thing is, how is you're complaining about him baiting conversations, yet you baited me hardcore into this.
uh, what I mean is like not him baiting conversations.
Can we read the original message here, like that was sent
Yeah,
my way?
go for it.
I'm just super curious how you can unpack this and still take yourself seriously on a political level. That's my job, so that's you're hitting pretty close to home there. Then
Yeah.
plenty of topics to pick. How you've tanked my credibility being a political streamer. So I've lost my credibility. I'm not a credible person anymore.
I
Giving
don't
Steven
see.
a pass. And how I'm
I
hosting a toxic environment that is anywhere near the status of debate, which isn't healthy for anyone involved, myself included as a former participant. And what this actually ended up being is, well, you, Dylan, interacted with somebody who has done stuff that you also don't like, and therefore your credibility is gone. Like what? Like, do you not see how this is like hardcore baiting compared to like what I'm getting right now?
if
Occurred is
you
occurred.
are in a position
Reno
where you have
Mac Ray,
taken on the mantle
$10.
of politics,
Thanks for keeping it
and
toxic,
you
bro.
are here to like sort of educate an audience and to sort of
Uh-huh.
introduce them in terms of concepts of that, I don't see how you can reconcile having Destiny anywhere close to a political candidate ever again with
Because the thing
the
is,
pattern of behaviors that he's been
because
manifesting over
it all
time.
depends on the campaign. It all depends on the role. Like for example, I have no problem with what he ended up doing for Warnock and Ossoff at the end of the day. Also, do you know about the videos I originally made, like criticizing his political activism?
What?
The video I made where I talked to Polar, who was one of the original people out there canvassing with him, where I said I think how he's interacting with DSA and all these other organizations are actually bad. And basically, I ended up being right about that aspect because that one staffer he had was like actually all the problems I was talking about.
Well, sure,
Are
but
you unaware of this video?
that staffer might have. Well, no, I wasn't aware of that video. However, like I haven't seen anybody from politics actually take Destiny on in relation to his rhetoric and occasional, you know, outbursts.
I mean,
And these are
I've
not
seen more
typical
people than I
outbursts
could
either.
probably mention, like bring up this to him directly on stream and off stream and everywhere.
Well, these are not individuals that are within like your sort of orbit, I guess, and that's just my sort of assessment. It seems to have been Mark Gudgel's assessment as well, considering he basically divorced himself. So
Well,
we'll see how that
yes,
plays out.
because
I'm definitely going to keep him on, telling people about Destiny and to look out for him. Like that's not going to change because I don't think people know what they're getting into. And Mark Gudgel even sort of illustrated that with his comments and his press releases.
yeah, I mean, if you make bad PR, if you make bad statements in the past, it affects your ability to get involved in politics. That's 100% true. I just don't think that all of his activism was to waste. Like I think his stuff with Warnock and Ossoff, at the end of the day, was perfectly fine and ended up being a net benefit.
Well, I mean, it's good considering Doug messed up the marketing campaign. If somebody might have
Yeah.
caught wind, that might have been considering it was a pretty razor thin margin.
So it's good that despite Doug, we did quite well.
Yeah, but if Doug would have done good and like somebody would have reported on that and Destiny would have like dogpiled that individual,
By the way,
it might have been a different story.
If you actually watch, there's actually a video of Destiny uploaded, and you can see me debating Doug in the background, and me we're having a discussion about like the idea of Destiny leading a political pack, and I laugh at the idea. And we debate about it for like 20 minutes in the background. You can kind of hear me almost yelling at him, like Destiny doesn't have experience, doesn't know what he's doing here. The people who are here, a big part of them are like video game nerds and would not really be interested in getting more involved in this than otherwise just meeting Destiny. And I have this discussion, so it's not like nobody could like possibly see through it. But again, like this was still a net benefit, even if it had its bumps and problems. I don't see, like, I'm not arguing to you that Destiny is like his campaign operation was 100% perfect. Do you need a
Okay.
hug?
No, I'm cool.
Okay.
No, I've actually like settled down, so don't worry about that at all or anything related to that. Actually, speaking was sort of what helped just general panic in that case. But like in terms of like Destiny himself, you went down and you offered your support by sort of showing up with Bastia. That doesn't strike me as the action of somebody who is sort of taking issue with the individual and his actions. It seems like you're
Occurred is
actually
occurred.
showing
MTG $10.
solidarity.
This
Solidarity
guy really
with
wants to
Destiny's
sleep
action.
with
Like,
Destiny,
what?
So much sexual frustration.
Like, what? Wait. Solidarity with what of his actions? Like him getting involved in Ossoff and Warnock's campaign? Yes, I'm happy that he did that. Like him, like all of his statements? No, I disagree with multiple things Destiny has said and done. Like I disagree with this. Like I disagree with his stance on, for example, the N-word.
Right.
I disagree with. I disagree with his Rittenhouse take. Not the take about defensive property. I support defensive property. I've talked about that at length before. I disagree with the idea that redneck militias at all should be in these environments because a lot of these militias are extremely, extremely dangerous and have ties to like white nationalist groups and such. So, I don't know exactly what you're asking me. Like, are you asking me if I agree with like him participating in Warnock and Ossoff? And again, I do. I think what he did was good, and I want to see more people do it.
I would want to see more people do it, and initially I was behind it, but I changed my mind after just what I saw with how he treated Hannah, which is, seems to be an exceptional journalist by any standing, and other
Again,
journalists
how
seem
he
to have
treated
agreed with
Hannah
that.
was a retweet.
Yeah, but like I mean,
Can we?
people don't
Can
just
you pull
like.
up this dastardly retweet for me?
I'm currently blocked. It should be like one of the ones at the far bottom of his thing. Let me see if I had an image capture of it. And he made like one of his little manifestos on the Reddit. So
It's like fine. Okay, do I have to? Okay, I'll find it.
I'm looking for it.
Okay, got it. It just, this seems to be like a big thing, but the way you described it to me, I'm not that like torn up about it. And it certainly isn't like something that's gonna make me stop. Do you want me to stop interacting with Destiny? Is that it?
I don't know what should happen at this point in time. I don't know if like Destiny
Because like
showing a
half of your
remorseful-
criticism, because half of your criticisms are okay, half of your criticisms are things that could be applied to every Twitch streamer, right? So that's not practical for me to use that criticism really as like a way
Right.
to interact with people or not interact with people. Your other criticism, which is the Hannah thing, is not nearly enough to make me want to like not interact with somebody. The biggest thing, the closest you could get to would be, I would say the Rittenhouse take, and I agree with half of his take, which is the defensive property, not the other half, which is the who would be there and the encouragement of people to kind of like be like vigilante, kind of protect the stuff when a lot of these groups that he was specifically talking about have like not good ties. But again, I'm willing, definitely when organizing around Ossoff and Warnock, which ended up being a good thing because now child poverty has been almost cut in half. We're gonna have so many like benefits to the American state, to myself, to a lot of people who are working people because of that. And I'm most certainly willing to overlook that and other things in order to work with him. I would do the same thing, for example, Joe Biden, the Democrats have to overlook a lot of things Joe Manchin have done or voted for or said in order to work with him. Yeah, so
So you want to have positive political ends. And I see a roadblock with Destiny and his just repeated incidents that's sort of antithetical to that. My position hinges on him sort of potentially correcting that behavior. One of the ways to do that is to become aware of his interactions on social media, which is why I was using my
So
experience.
okay, so again, but in the way I did support politically and engage with him politically, it was not in a way and I think was harmful. I went to Georgia and I canvassed for Warnock and Ossoff. I don't think anybody was really gonna say that was bad of me. And for the people who are gonna like talk about like the mess ups, even with the mess ups, he still did an amazingly good thing getting involved in Georgia. When everybody else on this platform, they'll talk about getting involved, they'll talk about organizing, they'll say that they've done it, they'll push that they've done it, but then when it's time to do it, when it's time to go to DC on January 6th to represent, nobody's there. When it's time to go protect your community from Fish's fucking Proud Boys, nobody's there. I'm the only one there. When it's time to actually like run for city council or get on a city board or do anything politically, nobody's there. And Destiny, even if he isn't the perfect ambassador, most certainly not the perfect ambassador, he actually did it. And that's something I immensely respect and actually puts him above a lot of other streamers on this platform, which I haven't seen do that. Because as somebody who has been involved in politics way before I got on this platform, I expected a lot more people to be about what they preach, but they aren't. And even if the Mark Grudgels thing didn't go well, I think the Ossoff Warnock thing did go well, even if it had its road bumps. I haven't seen anybody pulled off what he pulled off in Georgia with zero organizing experience before, so of course there's going to be roadblocks. And with this thing with Warnock is, not Warnock, but the thing with Mark Grudgel, didn't go perfect. I think he's now kind of realizing that his past is going to catch up to him in a lot of these instances, but I don't think this is at all comparable to what happened in Georgia. I think what he attempted to do was good, and I have no problem with it. In fact, I like it.
I agree. I really wish that more individuals would do what Steven did in relation to that. It was a highly commendable act. He even used his own money to fund this initially, and that is something to be applauded.
Hell, even I couldn't do, like I ended up paying for my hotel room, but even I can't do that because that stuff is immensely expensive.
Yeah, I think it was like what, $30,000 of his own money.
Yeah, that's a
If
lot
I
of money.
recall correctly.
That's almost as much as I make in a year.
That's insane. So huge applause for that. However, the problem lies is like when media finally catches up to him, and
Oh, it's
they
Gudgel,
do-
not Grudgel. Sorry, Gudgel. Sorry.
and when they finally report on,
Oh, it was
These,
60K. He spent 60K of his own money. Yeah, that's more.
60K?
That's way more than I even. That's almost double what I make in a year.
I think the 60K was Gudgel, and I think 30K was Georgia. I might be
So
mistaken.
that's 90K in political, like that type of capital is immensely like insane.
So Steven's definitely the type of person who takes ownership of things, and he gets shit done. That is not like something that I could ever take away from him. However, it's just like if this catches up, and for me, it was primarily the response. I don't like people who bully. Like it rubs me the wrong way, and when people start doing that kind of shit.
Wait, didn't
I
you
just
say that he
wanted-
doesn't take ownership of his actions?
No, I said he did take ownership of that particular situation. However, he didn't take ownership of.
By the way, when he fails, let's be clear, he is
Yeah.
the person who ultimately is probably hurt the most. When we look
Yep.
at how much money he's putting on the line here.
Yeah, for sure. Like it is a loss of investment and time.
Yeah.
And
And I've been in
effort.
situations where, like, the thing is, if I was to ever put that much money up and just risk it, I would be homeless. Like if I failed, like just period. Like I just don't have the money to do that. And so seeing that those large amount of money being put on the table for like Georgia and these local races and stuff, like, is really like just that's amazing to me. Like what am I supposed to think of that? Like again, like why would I ever like let go of a perfect opportunity to elect good people because I disagree with statements that he's made? The only way you can convince me that it would have been bad is if you convince me by him being in the room, period, it hurts more, right? And I think for the original Georgia, and I think in Georgia, that's unarguable. That I don't think that's possible because there's just he didn't have deep enough ties to either person to make that argument. And I think when it comes to Warnock, it's more Gudgel. I think it's more arguable there because of what ultimately ended up happening, but I don't fault him for at least trying. I think he just needs to reevaluate how to do this going forward, and I think he probably has to do it more on the national level, where he's not going to have direct ties with these people if he wants to help. Local level, it's just going to be too like people can actually focus on him and take time away from the actual issues, and he's going to have more ties to the local individual. I think him being involved in Senate races and congressional races is the way to go forward. Like if he gets involved in another Senate race in 2022, I think that would actually be good. I think that'd be a way for him to try to keep doing this going forward.
I will give you and Steven my word that I will not make any attempts to sabotage that particular event.
When you say
in order to
sabotage,
inform.
can you like what do you mean by that?
There's basically like getting
Like emailing
sort of-
reporters or like
well, no, informing the candidate that he's representing, like what they're getting into.
Well, the thing is, I'm not telling him to go represent a candidate. I'm telling him to go organize canvassing efforts on his own accord. By doing that, he keeps himself separate from the campaign, and they can't really hold the campaign to account for something they don't even know that's going on.
Maybe.
I think that's the best way to do it, because then what's the news story going to be? Person who said bad thing organizes separate thing separate from candidate that candidate doesn't know about and has no relate. Like what's the breaking news? Like it'll literally fade into obscurity. That story is not a headliner.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. However, like I'm still I'm still apprehensive that this would actually have anything. But I'll gladly like eat that humble pie if it comes over to my table, and
I don't know if
will...
we'll ever do it again. I think the Mark Gudgel situation has really been like really hit him hard, which is understandable. Like how it's like his home city that he wanted to get involved in and do something good, and it really hurt. Like it probably really hurt him, and not to mention the fact that like I think a lot of people like I think a lot of people actually looked at that situation and reveled in it, just the fact that he's failing. And I saw a lot of other streamers do it, and that really pissed me off because it showed to me that they're more interested in personality politics than actually real politics.
So for me, it was more what happened in the aftermath that I had a huge issue with, and just sort of maybe lack of getting ahead of this thing in the first place. Like maybe tying all your bills, but this is like post hoc rationalization, so there's not really much to say there because I was on board beforehand, and I even partook in the actual campaign. However, I do know how people are going to
in the Gudgel campaign.
Yeah, briefly. Like I signed up for the phone bank thing, and then this stuff, like he started getting into it with who was it, Demon Mama and Riley. Yep. And at that point in time, that's when
That's another thing you brought up. What's so evil about that one?
It's just essentially throwing fire on two people that like really didn't need to have that kind of a lens put on them. That's it.
I mean, if the idea is we have problems with people like throwing fire, like how specifically did he like say you should go do this, you should go do that, or did he just react to it and comment on it, and that's the problem?
It was just, like, it was just how he approached because of his past with Demon Mama. He took Riley kind of under his wing, and essentially kind of aligned himself with Riley, and it was basically him and Riley versus Demon Mama. That's sort of the problem I had with that, and the various different arguments that he made in relation to that.
What do you
But,
mean by
like,
took Riley under his wing?
well, he sort of like started having conversations and just showed up and
Well,
super
then
interested
have I
because,
been taken under Destiny's wing as well? Are we all just like little like Destiny spawns?
well, I mean,
Or am I under Vosh's wing because I also do stuff with him?
potentially certain pressures that could be there. However, I don't know like exactly your routine 24/7, so I wouldn't be able to say for sure. But
Okay.
with Riley, it was more or less the second there was a conflict with one of his old adversaries, which is Demon Mama, he sided with Riley. And I don't think that the community that they come from needs that kind of attention and harassment, because when Steven's audience gets to individuals, it's not sort of a pretty thing. I had like one guy who had a PhD in psychology tried to diagnose me over Twitter. And one of the things that I asked him to do was to knock it off and take it back. And I said, if he wasn't going to do that, then I'm going to essentially take it from there with his faculty. And he chose to side with Destiny over his career. So, good
Wait.
job for him.
Did you email his faculty?
Yeah.
Occurred is occurred.
Okay.
I mean, the
Teaching
guy is
$5.
basically
Blame
diagnosing
Destiny on
people
Let's Get
on
Some
Twitter and
PokeChamps
saying
in
they're
chat.
insane. Do you think you can, with a philosophy PhD, and let's say you were to use a university as collateral and basically say, this is my professional opinion, that you are crazy?
Okay, so the thing is, I've had stuff like this happen to me before, and so okay, so I remember a while ago I was working on the Michaela Wilkes campaign, and while I was on that, a literal terrorist died. What the hell is happening on screen right now? Oh no, this is a blood moon. So during that, I condemned a terrorist that was part of the Lachai. The Lachai was an Israeli terrorist group whose main goal, was like basically the idea of like foundation of Israel, blah blah blah, protecting Israel. But they like slaughtered Arab Palestinians and literally openly called themselves a terrorist group. Like openly, they were like, "We are a terrorist group. Our point is to inspire terror." And they even once wanted to make a deal with the Nazi regime. Like they're not cool dudes. And a member of it died, and I condemned them as a terrorist. And I told the truth about the type of activities they engaged in. And a reporter for the Jerusalem Post, who is a big fan of Netanyahu, right? And has reported, like, really big at the time, like 92, like it was like 98,000 followers on Twitter, and I was like at 200.
Right.
Retweeted me. It was like, "You're a Holocaust denier." Fucking, like, just what, like out of nowhere. And I looked at that situation, and I was terrified I was gonna lose my job. And so, seeing situations like people going after somebody's employment or places of employment, I do you really think that was a serious enough of an offense that you'd be willing to target somebody's employment for it?
If they are representing themselves as a medical expert and they're basically telling people that they're crazy and using an institution in order to sort of like sell that, yeah, I'm going to call you faculty. But I didn't just call his faculty. I told him that it was unethical, and I gave him a chance to sort of mull things through. Because again, you have your intentional system, you have your automatic system. I was hoping his intentional system would kick in and get him to think twice and just, just chill the fuck out and just realize that he is not in a position to make that kind of an assertion as an academic. And he's not even qualified to do so. And thirdly, it's like incredibly fucking stupid for anybody to give a diagnosis over Twitter.
And so, because you weren't happy that he was using what he considered his expert opinion, you thought that was a worse enough offense to go after his...
He doesn't have an expert opinion.
So he's
Get that out of
not
your
studied.
He's got a PhD in philosophy, and he writes about fucking League of Legends in his papers.
Okay.
This is not somebody who
So he has a
is-
PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
So, but he wasn't talking about philosophy?
No, he was basically saying how he's a social media expert and also an expert in psychology. And he was basically making a diagnosis on my condition.
I don't want to tear into this anymore. Okay. This is from DGG. He's talking about me. I have a PhD in media and information, multiple publications on parasocial relationships. I told him his session with was concerning. He was going after me, and he was going after Afrosabi, that he should seek help. He DM'd me, called my private cell, and then called my department chair. So basically, he told you should seek help, and your obsession is concerning, and that was it, or is anything I just said an inaccurate retelling of events?
Let me bring up the actual tweet. And also, Alex, if you want to double down on this, I'd highly advise against it. And I'd highly advise that you
You gonna try to get him fired again or something?
Well, I mean, if he's gonna double down on it, I'm just gonna contact his faculty again, pretty much.
Jesus, man, I don't want to be fucking involved in that bullshit.
I wouldn't want to be involved in that bullshit either, because, you know, that would suck if you were somebody who was not qualified to give medical advice over Twitter, and you're using your institution. In order
you're gonna have to give me
that.
a pretty hardcore tweet to convince me that this guy deserved, like to like to lose his fucking job. Like, I mean, this is a pretty, like,
He's not gonna lose his job. It was
well,
just
no,
to get the
it's something
faculty involved.
Well, yeah, well,
They had-
you
they
don't
had-
know.
they
You
literally
don't know.
had
You
a-
don't know. Okay. If I called your place of employment and said, "Hello, this guy said I was toxic. He said this. He said that. You know, he's representative of your institution." You don't know what that could lead to. We can say like, well, you know, what it's going to lead to is a firm warning. We don't know. You don't know. You don't know the environment at his work, do you? Do you work there?
So, if you're at a point where you're essentially siding with calling somebody online and using your institution as sort of collateral in terms of like getting that point across, then yeah, you don't deserve to work there anymore, period. However,
but what are these tweets that were so okay? I have the tweets. Let me actually like read these on stream and like figure out. Okay, so trying to find like where. Okay, I have the tweets and we can look at them. Okay, great, wonderful. Let me bring these on stream. I'm gonna actually stop playing for a second. We'll bring these on stream. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so Afrosabi tweets, "I'm still amazed that Steven, Destiny, got what most people would view as a young introverted gamers to go out and knock doors on a pretty large scale. My mind is still kind of blown since the first encounter with a random DGG canvasser guy. I sincerely hope they continue." Seems like a perfectly mundane tweet. "When you show up to a city and start harassing student journalists to the point where the candidate you are representing has to cut ties, this is not why they cut ties. This doesn't seem like a model that's worth getting behind unless you've become addicted to social media and the tribe it delivers. Like, imagine if Doug wasn't a total screw up, Jesus, and actually got media attention in Georgia, how that little scenario might have played out. As again, the idea that Destiny could have at all like undermined like the Ossoff of Warnock campaign, I think is like overemphasizes like just how much influence Destiny has, or the amount of ties he would have to the Ossoff and Warnock campaign. We can mobilize the youth, but that requires a professional adult, which Steven isn't. And is this Jonas? Is this the person? Or who is the individual here? That
I just sent you the tweet. You can stop reading all that bullshit, and you can just read the part where he talks about being a professional.
Okay, here it is.
Please,
okay,
let me read
Gudgel's distancing from Destiny was a response in part to a student paper. Destiny's response was a distinct event and does not amount to harassment by any known definition. Alex, you're not qualified to make that kind of an evaluation, firstly, so you questioned his ability to make an evaluation about this. Secondly, running around on Twitter telling some people to get help when it's set well with SEIU. Wait,
I question. No, you just said I question his ability to do this on Twitter. Do you think that
this does not look good? This looks terrible.
Like, do you think that anybody is able to make a professional diagnosis over social media?
Not really, but I think as saying you should seek help isn't like a really hardcore diagnosis. If somebody said, "Hey, you've gone through a lot, Dylan.
On a
You should." I
professional
recommend.
note-
If somebody wait, if somebody said,
MTG
like for
means
example,
$5. Quit
let's-
reading context cap.
Okay, listen to this. Okay, so I have been through stuff in my life, and let's say I talk about it on stream, and somebody said, "Hey, Dylan, I recommend getting help. Like that seems like a lot." Should I go after their work now? Should I go on a quest to slay this person? This seems like a very mundane comment. And I've already told you, and I'm not a professional, but you do seem to be obsessive about Destiny. That does seem like why are you, the reason you're talking to me right now is because I have I'm not even like that close. I'm like somewhat, I talk to Destiny.
So
every
you
once
keep
in a
on
while.
using this term obsessive. So first, let's deal with the argument in relation to Alex.
Well, this is the first time I've used the word obsessed,
That's
but
basically, well, no, you said it before in the
When?
conversation. Like earlier on in the conversation.
okay.
I
I'll take your
couldn't
word
give
on
you
it.
the
I'll take your
timestamp.
word on it.
So Alex essentially is sort of basically coming at this as if like I haven't been sort of doing my due diligence in terms of like trying to assess my situation and trying to deal with it. That's why this is just ableism, pure and simple.
This
He
is
doesn't have any
ableism?
idea in terms of like, yeah, he has no idea what I have been doing in terms of trying to tackle the problems with just mental health in general. And he has absolutely no knowledge of like what it means for me to sort of interact in these kinds of situations. So for him to do a cold read like that, yeah, I'd say that professionally is completely out of line.
I think
And
you're
there's
really
no
overreacting.
psychologist. There's no psychologist in his right mind that would get behind it. In fact, the faculty sided with me, and they talked to him, and the matter was now closed. So if Alex Leith wants to give an apology in terms of like what he had to say, and just sort of say that he is not qualified to make these kinds of assessments, that would be great to hear from him right now.
This right now seems like you complained to the manager, and then the manager had to like put on like a smart face to like be like, "Oh, your concerns make sense." Like this doesn't. This seems like you overreacted to him just like saying like maybe you should go get help. This seems like a big overreaction to the point where you went to his place of employment and we're like trying to like make something happen there.
Okay. This is really frustrating because
I've had this happen to me too, where I make a statement on foreign policy and somebody
Well,
asks the
hold
person
on.
I work for, and they'll be like,
Can-
"You really work for somebody that says stuff like this?" And then I have to have a
Dylan-
whole meeting about it.
like I really need to make this point because like what you're doing right now isn't cool. And the reason it's not cool is because one of the people who was sort of projecting this idea that I'm sort of crazy or insane was Destiny, and it was also Vosh. So those two individuals essentially basically gave me the black mark. And at that point in time, everybody in Destiny's audience decided to call me crazy, Alex included, and he was following that narrative. This wasn't something that he just decided to come up on a whim, and it was not benign in terms of intent. He was there to deliver like a barbed remark at me and use his organization in order to do that. So don't give me that shit. It's complete and total like bullshit, and anybody who says otherwise, well, can fucking suck my dick.
The thing is,
Don't care. That topic is now closed, buddy.
Okay, well then goodbye. You have a good day. If you don't want to talk,
Yeah.
If you don't want to talk, dude.
Well, we've been talking for quite some time. We can move on to other topics.
I mean, this is okay. Well, then I'm just gonna let you know that I disagree 100%. I think you overreacted, and that's it. Okay.
well,
there you
then what I'd say is like
I
Go
thought, no,
and
topic's
try-
done. Topic's done. I'm sorry, you closed it. It's closed. I just closed the doors on it. We can't.
well,
move back.
I'm just closing the one
no.
topic
The
in
doors
terms of
are
mental
closed.
health.
It's the car's already gone. Like you can chase after it, but the
you, like-
Spectre's gone.
How old are you, Dylan?
20.
Okay, it shows.
It shows.
Yep.
You're 41, and
I
you
am.
were the person who DM'd me, called me talk. So you DM a 20-year-old. If we're gonna play it this way, if we're gonna do the whole age thing. So you, not liking a 30-something streamer, decide to DM, message, and challenge a 20-year-old.
So what actually happened? What actually happened? No, because you're
I'm saying because no,
Sort
you
of
just you
narrative.
insulted my age. I'm not. I don't play with that. So what you're doing is you say, "Oh, you're a 20-year-old. You're acting like it. You are 41, and you not happy." He left. Whatever. He's not happy with what a streamer, Destiny, somebody in his 30s, did. So he DMs, messages, and asks me because he not being able to talk to Destiny because Destiny has called him crazy, wants to now talk to me because I'm going to be his Destiny proxy. And he's going to complain about a streamer that I'm not because he can't get to Destiny directly. That's what's going on. And I mean, I'm sorry if I'm 20 and I'm a child to you, man, but at least I'm not going to everybody's friends of people I don't like, trying to get people fired, and just DMing people unrelated to the little fucking fetishes I have for streamers, okay? I love nerds. What kind of conversation did I just have, man? Holy shit, I hope the dude doesn't go over to my place of work. Holy fuck.